Thank you, Ewan, for that. Now, hello everyone. Today I'll be talking about friendship and why I think making connections with the people at Hutchins is most important. But first, I'd like to start with a description of my time at Hutchins to hopefully illustrate to you how to make the most of your school experience. I remember the first time I attended an assembly in this room. As a Year 7 boy who had come from a school on the Eastern Shore, it was the first time I was given an indication of the culture and the history of the school I was attending. Coming into a community which I hadn't been a part of was daunting. It was a daunting prospect, and I was afraid. Afraid of meeting new people, afraid of fitting in, afraid of putting on the socks and the blazer which all those senior school boys did with such vigour and confidence. I vividly remember the Year 7 orientation day. The day is still seared in my memory as being the first time I was fully out of my comfort zone, learning new names, distinguishing the new kids from the ones who had gone through the junior school, and trying to find someone to sit with at lunch. That was probably the hardest thing I found, making new friends. I wasn't particularly sociable, and I recall sitting next to a guy I'd met once at the orientation day, and for the first 3 weeks of school, we'd sit in the same location, eat the same soggy sandwiches, and talk about the most boring, mundane topics possible. What's your favourite colour? How many siblings do you have? Etc. Later that year, I found myself a member of Sean Magnuson's band, and eventually, at the end of middle school, I had found a few boys that I could confidently call my mates. It wasn't until Year 9 that I had a solid friendship group, and as Alex Kusa said, the power of 9 camps helped greatly in strengthening those friendships. Year 10 was a breeze. I really started to get to know everyone a little bit better in my year group, and it was the first year I could confidently identify the difference between the Betts twins. Mrs. Bender's history class was particularly memorable as well, and to this day I'm still awaiting my grade for the Haj assignment. Now I find myself looking back on memories from last year as if they were last week. The freedom of being carted around in the back of friends' cars, although that hasn't changed. The morning rides to school and the weekends with the boys. And now we have arrived in the year 2020, our final year before the Year 12s all disperse on their own separate paths. If you're sitting here wondering how any of this recount of my experience is relevant to you and your own journey, let me explain. By the time you get to Year 12, and for those of us who are already here, you will want to tell people about your memories, the adventures this school has facilitated, the friends you've made within these walls, the shared experiences of your year group, the connections you have been able to establish because of this place. While you won't remember every one of your mates' antics in class, you will have a select few that will be preserved in your memory over time. For example, the time Dr. Eves footy kicked only the heart across the room in Year 8 English, Zandy's shirtless rendition of Jeff Goodfellow in House Drama, and Will Maver's over-enthusiasm for singing Take On Me. These memories and more are drawn from my overall Hutchins experience, an experience which encouraged me to forge connections with the boys around me, and that is what I believe this school excels at most. It allows young men to learn about the importance of character and integrity, and places boys in an environment where they can distill these attributes within themselves. So, going back to my Year 7 self, who was nervously awaiting the prospect of not finding a place at what seemed like a big and imposing school. I think I would have loved to know that I would eventually fit in. So if I were to summarise my experiences at Hutchins and make a list of all the things I would have wanted to tell myself in Year 7, or to anyone who is feeling alone and isolated at the moment, it would be this. It's okay to feel isolated. You will find a solid group of friends eventually. You will end up loving this place, and you will leave this place having learnt something and a better man for it. Now, if you're like me and love maths, you're in the minority, but here's a graph. This graph is how I believe my time at Hutchins is best represented. At first, it starts small. You may not know anyone when you first arrive, and getting to build friendships and make connections with people is difficult. As time goes on and the years creep along, you will grow stronger and stronger connections with the boys around you, maybe even creating your own memories like those I shared previously. Then, almost at once, the camaraderie starts to race away from you. all the years of shared experiences and mateship has sent your year group on a journey you can all look back on and laugh at. By years 11 and 12, you reach a point where no middle school prejudices or fractures between your year group are present. You all find common ground in the time you spend at Hutchins. This melting pot of character will weld and forge your year group into a collection of men who are integral to their beliefs, courageous and respectful young adults. However, as most of you have probably realised, this graph has a restricted domain, meaning at some point your journey within these walls will end. So, what's the best thing to do before this happens? There are many right answers. Pursue all the opportunities this school offers you, lap up the second-to-none education this school provides, get involved with sports, music, leadership, etc. To me, one thing that hasn't been promoted as heavily as these would be sustaining relationships and making connections with the people in this community. For all those Year 7s, Year 8s, 9s, 10s and 11s that have arrived this year, and for those who are sifting up the grades, eagerly awaiting the seats at the back of the hall, make sure to connect with your friends, keep in contact with the boys in your Year 8 geography class, the boys in your P9 PE class, catch up with your mates on the weekend, make some memories and enjoy your finite time here. Change this graph. Make it so you can unlock the camaraderie that many only experience in their last few years of Hutchins. Don't leave it until your last year. And most importantly, don't restrict the connections you've made within these walls from years 7 to 12. The theme of connections and your friendships are not meant to be restricted to your time here. Carry them throughout the rest of your life, and I can assure you they will be an asset to you. Cheers.